150 years. I believe in our county, there are only a handful of businesses that are 150 years old, and we're proud to be one of them. So we just ask for the village's blessings and your attendance. If you're available, free to come. I know that's the Black Squirrel event down here, but we think the two can segue to each other and make for a really great community day for Blissfield. So you are invited, and I have an official letter of invitation and may bring it to you.
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
You've been there the entire time.
Almost.
Another round. Thank you, Julie. And yeah, for all those in the community, please go out and support that day. Second presentation, investments, Michigan Cooperative Liquid Asset Security Systems. My class with Jeff Anderson.
Good evening. Thank you, Mr. President. My name is Jeff Anderson, and this is actually my first time I've ever been in the village of Blissfield. But I will tell you, I've heard about the village of Blissfield for more than 2 decades. And maybe are any of you baseball fans? High school baseball at all? That's a serious question. So I live in the Grand Ledge School District.
Oh, okay.
And there's a man named Pat O'Keefe that I played baseball for a long time ago. And I'm sure you guys know where I'm going with this, right?
Yes,
That the two coaches were battling for the state record in wins for years and years. And I honestly don't know where that ever ended up.
Coach Gary Tuttle, Blissfield, is the current record holder.
He is.
He is. He retired. This will be his second season away from the head of the program.
And Pat retired. This is his 3rd season.
Correct. So
away.
Larry hung on and surpassed Pat in his last season.
But if you look, well, my congratulations to Coach Tuttle. I will tell you that I played for Pat O'Keefe, and in a lot of ways, he changed my life for the better. So happy to be here tonight to represent Michigan class. Thank you to Brandon and Danielle for inviting me, and just spend a few minutes talking about what Michigan class is and how it could potentially benefit the village. So Michigan class is a local government investment pool. It's established under the Urban Cooperation Act of 1967. What it is it's a group of local units of government, cities, villages, townships, school districts, authorities in the state of Michigan that have banded together to invest their money with a few principles in mind. A little overview of the pool. Today, we have almost 700 participants in the pool. Danielle actually has a list. I think Brandon does as well. Happy to share that with you. Locally, participants in the pool, City of Adrian Schools, Lenawee County, large participant, the Lenawee Human Services Building Authority, Raisin Township, Blissfield Community Schools, and Clinton Schools are all within the county that are active participants in Michigan class. So what's the objective of Michigan class? It is really to band together and invest money for local units with a few principles in mind. Number one, always number one, is safety. So today, and since the inception of the pool in 1992, Michigan class is AAA rated by Standard & Poor's. That's the highest rating you can achieve as a local government investment pool. So we take that very seriously. Since 1992, no local unit of government in the pool has ever lost 1 penny. They've always, any dollar that's gone into the pool has come out plus interest. That's how it works. So there's no market fluctuation. It's a very short-term liquid pool. So safety is number one. Today, it's very relevant. Headline news within the banking industry. I think we're up to 3 regional banks that have failed in the last 60 days. So Michigan class is not a bank. We partner with your local banks to help you earn safe income on your dollars. But we are not a bank. We are simply a group of local units that have banded together to invest your money. So dollar goes into Michigan class. That money is diversified over 150 different ways. And you own little tiny bits of US treasuries and agencies, top tier commercial paper, and insured bank deposits. Those are really the three big buckets, and I think there's a list, a pie chart that has that in front of you. So we talk about diversity. I teach a lot of local government investment classes to new treasurers, and really spend a lot of time talking about diversity. Money comes in, boom, automatically diversified, versus yourself going in and buying individual securities. So safety and diversity, number one at the forefront of what we do. Number two, which is a little different than most investments, is the liquidity of the pool. So the pool has daily liquidity, meaning if you had $100,000 in the pool and tomorrow Brandon said, we have to pay some bills and we need $100,000, he could make a transfer request on our web portal or give us a call, and the next day that would be in your primary checking account. So very different than a CD from a bank where you have a specific maturity, if that makes sense. So it offers flexibility to you as projects come up. We've seen a lot of ARPA money come in. It's a great place for that, not only for the safety, for the liquidity, because a lot of folks weren't sure when they got it, when they're going to spend the money. Many have still not spent the money. I'm not sure where you guys are with it, if you got much, but so it's a really a nice place for those dollars that you're not quite sure when you're going to need. So liquidity, daily liquidity. Three is yield. So obviously the goal is to protect your asset, offer that liquidity, and then try to offer a competitive yield. You all are well aware of what inflation has done and what the Fed has done over the last 15 months. They've raised rate from 0 to 5.25% as of last Wednesday. So the Michigan class yield has followed that. Today, the yield is 5.13%. So if you had $100,000 in the pool tonight, you would earn 100,000 times 5.13% divided by 360 days. And we pay that daily. So not only do you earn that rate, you get a little bit of that compounding effect where each day we pay you versus the end of the month or the end of a specific time. The next question that typically comes up is well, what's the cost? The good news is Michigan Class is not a financial institution. We're really an entity created by participants, owned by our participants. So we don't have owners. The owners are the people I just mentioned, plus the other 660 folks in the state of Michigan. So there is no profit goal in mind, if you will. The more efficient we can be, the more we can provide to our participants. So that is the reason why we can go with no fees. So there's no monthly fees, there's no transaction fees, there's no minimum balances. You can have a zero, but you can have an account and have a zero balance. If you need your cash or it needs to be in the local bank or another financial institution, no problem. So there's really no direct cost to you. So the question then arises, well, you're managing $3.8 billion. There has to be a cost. There's technology, there's infrastructure, there's IT. So what happens is our elected board of 13 participants, we have a rotating schedule. They serve 4-year terms, meet quarterly to really manage the fund. They hire our money managers, which is a firm called Public Trust Advisors. They do local government investment pools in 12 states, manage about $60 billion. All they do is local government investment pools. The board has signed an agreement with Public Trust to manage the money for a cost of 0.13%. So let's take today, for instance. I said the yield was 5.13. That basket of $3.8 billion in investments earned 5.26, if you follow me. So they take the 0.13 off the top, and what we post on our website, the 5.13 today, is what we actually pay our participants. I was fortunate enough as a finance director at a township on the west side of Lansing, Delta Township, for almost 2 decades. I was on the Michigan Class board, and that's really when I found and really fell in love with this pool. And one of the first questions I asked at the first meeting was, is that 0.13 efficient? Is it egregious? How do we know that we're doing things as efficient as we can to provide the biggest yield for our participants? Really, the best comparison is there is another pool in the state. heavily used by school districts. The fee for that pool is 0.42, so it's more than 3 times what Michigan class charges. So in the end, who benefits? The participants, because the yield is greater, but no direct fee to any of our participants. How do you join? Step one is we make sure that you have an investment policy and it is in compliance. And I know Brandon and Danielle are working on an investment policy, I believe. And I think, is that right, Brandon? I think hopefully we'll bring that to you in the coming meetings. Step 2 would be to pass the board resolution approving Michigan class, and then step 3 is registration paperwork to link your bank accounts and set up users and all those good things. So just I'll open it up to questions, but a couple points I want to make clear is, number one, we are an investment pool. We are organized by your peers in the state of Michigan. We are not a bank, and we certainly have no intention of replacing your banking relationships. Local banks are very important to what you do every day, and we all need them. I'd love to answer any questions that you have.
Sure. I think I'll start. Who's your government oversight?
So multiple layers. One would be the elected board, number one. Number 2 would be Standard & Poor's rating agencies. Number 3 would be an annual independent audit that's posted on our website.
No state or federal oversight?
No state, well, SEC oversees the transactions. So SEC audits us randomly every 3 to 5 years. We partner with the state of Michigan in a couple ways. The biggest way is, and you may or may not be familiar with the Local Community Stabilization Authority, the LCSA. It's an arm of the state of Michigan created in 2014 when personal property tax reform, and we had that $80,000 exemption for small personal property taxpayers. They wanted to make the local units whole. Part of that legislation was to create the LCSA, okay? The LCSA is partnered with Michigan class to distribute all their money. So whether you're getting your check in ACH or direct deposit to your Michigan class account, we are taking that $46 million from the state and sending it to all the locals. So I think that shows that the state treasurer is very aware of what we do and really in full support of the program.
Okay. You said 3.8 billion under current management?
Correct.
That's all I have. Anybody else have any questions for Mr. Anderson?
You answered it with the very last statement. I was curious as I'm looking at Julie here with our banking, and I was like, well, how does this fit in, and how do you collaborate with our banking system?
So it's a great question. So Michigan class participants, we have a state-of-the-art secure web portal. And when staff were to establish your account, they would set up your bank account and they actually link, and we move money back and forth via ACH.
You had mentioned a little bit earlier.
Yeah, so very secure, number one, but 2, very easy. I mean, literally moving money to your bank from your bank takes 30 seconds. The hardest part is logging in with all the dual authentication, all that good stuff nowadays. But in today's market, what a fantastic time to be part of the pool to earn that liquid yield. Now, let's be realistic. A lot of people will say, what's the downside? Are there any cons to Michigan class? Because it sounds almost, some people will say it sounds almost too good to be true. I firmly believe every local unit should have an account, cost you nothing. Every unit in the state, I think, should have an account. But there's going to be times, if and when we hit a recession, there's going to be the Fed will cut rates, right, to stimulate the economy. When that happens, the rate for Michigan class will tail. And I couldn't tell you if that's in 6 months or 6 years, but it's going to happen. And that's a time maybe where we work with our other partners, our local banks, to maybe buy some longer CDs with some money that we know we don't need for 12 months per se, and lock those rates in, if that makes sense. It's an option. We would never expect, and I would never encourage anyone to put every dollar they had in Michigan class. Doesn't make any sense. But what it does do is diversify your risk. Whereas anything today, anything over $250,000 in a financial institution, you're putting your full faith and credit in the credit of that financial institution. And with the failures recently, couple things. One, we've seen a ton of money come in because people want to reduce their bank risk. And two, folks are realizing the importance of their banking relationships and to understand the finances of that bank. And when I teach my government investment classes, I encourage every treasurer to any bank that they use, they should have a file that has their quarterly credit report of that bank. So you can say, yes, I've looked at that. We feel comfortable that this bank is solvent.
So how is Michigan Class organized? Are you a 501c3?
We are not. We are established through the Urban Cooperation Act in 1967. So we are essentially, let's say that you had it's not even an authority. It is I'm trying to think the right word for it. It's a partnership from local entities. So let's say that you partnered with a neighboring community to build a pump station, if you will, and you're both parties are going to benefit from that pump station. It's the same thing. It's just expanded into 700 units.
So what do you file as a tax return?
We don't. There are no taxes because we're a quasi governmental entity. Just as the village does not file a tax return.
Okay.
Considered by the state an arm of the state, almost as a municipality, a group of municipalities. Good question. Nobody's ever asked me that question. 16 years.
Julie and I are thankful.
That's a great question.
Returns to your community. I remember that.
Danielle, could you provide perhaps some background of the rationale for Jeff to attend tonight's meeting? Where's this kind of coming from? If I could kind of get an idea, please.
Yeah, I actually would defer to Brandon on that.
Okay.
To explain.
My question is, could you provide some background of the rationale for Jeff to attend and have the presentation for tonight's meeting?
Did I suggest it?
Where did where did all this come from? Yes.
Out of a personal contributions money comes from the local community stabilization authority. They could have happened and with a year ago. And I just read it a year ago and I forgot about it and then read it again because they were at the treasurer's training that I was at the week before. And then it was talked about it, that I had already decided to do that for that. Other municipalities are jumping in on it and taking the opportunity to make the extra money. And one of the things was, I think it was $3 million, there's $150,000 in interest a year. I'm just trying to figure it, like, not to take away from this, but say, hey, let's just try to divide everything else.
The diversification.
That's.
Okay, and so you knew about this in the past. You had your recent, your recent training. That discussion came up again, and hence the reason for this. Okay,
Well,
I was kind of curious.
That's so a part of it, so I already known about it before that, but it came up there again. And the training, and I had a good conversation with the treasurer of Tecumseh about it, so, and she said that they really love the program. But she did say they balance between their banks, because they banks support the community. That's where I struggle, because our banks support our community the most. And I don't want to take anything away, so as far as they can begin to spirit or do something like that.
So this is to give information for council as well. Okay.
There's no action item tonight
Right,
on this,
right.
but we wanted to have Jeff here to really present the information to see if it's even a conversation we want to have or we can go from there.
Yeah, I was just curious the background. Thank you.
I think it's a great tool resource to have in front of us because, you know, up until 2-3 months ago, at the beginning of the year, we didn't even think, you know, to not put all our eggs in one basket, and not that we don't trust them, the bank. But again, like you had mentioned in your last statement, to diversify and protect the village's financial interests. I mean, I'm trying to picture what we could do with it. I don't know if there's limits on what kind of fund, you know, if it's enterprise funds or if it doesn't matter what kind of fund. But if we're gonna be sitting on some water and sewer fund, some utility fund in order, to meet the USDA standards for our new wastewater treatment plant and to provide future infrastructure upgrades. Why wouldn't we, if we're gonna bank that money, we're gonna get a lot more interest or a lot more dividend investing in something like this, 5% for that money that has to sit there for the rainy day future investments. It would just, that would be a good starting point to sit that money because we're gonna get a higher interest rate or higher investment rate on it.
One thing that I failed to mention that is really for staff is class offers the ability to have unlimited sub accounts. So what you mentioned is a perfect example. Everyone's got a general fund account, water, sewer, ARPA, capital projects. Really, it's up to you. You can have one sub account, or I have one county with, I think, 86. That's a little excessive. I would encourage you honestly to contact the county treasurer, big supporter of the program, been in the pool a long time. Correct.
We did reach out to Tecumseh and someone else, didn't we?
I can speak, I just can't believe it, it's just, yes. And then.
I can forward you their responses too. Tecumseh was a huge supporter and the response that I.
Did you say our Blissfield schools as well, Brandon?
They are part of the program.
They're part of this.
Correct. Yep. Judy, I think anybody on Judy Fund? Yep.
And like she was saying, one of the reasons why pursue making these changes because of the utility ban, because of all the infrastructure, we have to replace them copper lines. That's like part of the budget, so that's when we start to stay with the utility ban. And that's and we need the other money in efficiency.
Absolutely, and if everybody's only insured up to 250,000, if the local banks fail and everything else, we're in for more of a world apart than anything else. So I mean, putting at least 250 into that, that's pretty much holding that infrastructure money, that USDA required money. So why wouldn't we try to get 5% on it?
Well, 5% is a new rate. Since the Fed started moving rates up.
Yeah, rate changes daily, correct. So yesterday, actually, or Friday, the rate was 506. Fed moved last week, takes a couple days to catch up. We'll probably get close to 525, 530 in the next 7 days or so. Typically, that's how it works.
But performance year over year, over 5 year spread, they're saying 1.5%, 3 years of 1.0, and over the last year is 2.9% returns.
Correct.
So 5% is basically overnight funds like the Fed. It would take the last 3-4 months. That's gotten up that high. Well, interesting presentation, Mr. Anderson. Thank you. Anything else?
Yeah,
Go ahead.
you don't change your portfolio, correct? Or you do.
Well, the mix would constantly be in flux. I would have to believe that they're moving money and
Yeah.
the 30s are.
You guys are still, so there is still risk there, obviously.
So talk about risk, and today, I think the last time I looked, maybe it was Thursday, we had 195 different pieces of paper, different investments. So since 92, not one of those have ever not paid. But let's say that it did. What's the result to you? You own a fractional share. That's if you had $1 million in the pool, you'll 1/3.8 billion of that piece of paper, right? So maybe the yield that day instead of 5.13 was 5.06. You know what I mean? It's really the diversification is I'll be honest with you, I came to Michigan class when I was in Delta in 2006, and the reason was I had $25 million in a local bank. It was a great bank. I love the bank, but I couldn't sleep at night because of that one bank. Something were to happen, it would be catastrophic. My name would be in the paper, and I didn't want that. So that's what drew me to it was number one, safety, but really the diversity of spreading out your money. Certainly the yield is fantastic today, but I'll be honest with you, we had $2 billion in the pool when rates were at 0, and we were paying 0.1%. Because it's easy to use and the diversity piece of it. So the rate is an awesome benefit right now, but certainly should not be the driving factor. The safety really is really the driving factor, in my opinion.
Well, based on history, the market, no matter what, depression, recession, war, whatever, it's always bounced back and it's always continued to grow, and that's historically a fact. Again, it's something where catastrophic to happen, I think we're all in a bigger problem than we would potentially be if this one dropped. Yeah.
Well, up until recently, when a bank went under, only up to $250,000 of your deposits were insured. And just recently, FDIC said they insure 100% of deposits, so that's a huge game changer.
It'll be interesting to see if they can, you know, if they make that law, or if it's just a case by case basis.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Anything else? No? Anything down here?
Thank you for your presentation.
No? Yeah.
I appreciate your time. I'm happy to stick around if you'd like to ask questions afterwards, or you're free to email me. Folks, I think my contact information is on the bottom. If not, Brandon has it. Really a pleasure to you folks. So
Fantastic.
thank you.
Give our best to Pat O'Keefe.
We'll do that. Yeah, I saw that first time I saw that.
Tell me he's welcome to Blissfield. All right, moving on, the agenda for today. Can I get a motion to approve today's agenda, tonight's agenda?
Make a motion that we approve the agenda for this evening, May 2023.
I support. Moved and supported. Thank you, gentlemen. Lisa?
Mike,
Yes.
Tim,
Yes.
Bill,
Yes.
Gwen,
Yes.
Eric,
Yes.
Barry,
Yes.
James.
Yes. Moving on, public comment. Open the floor for public comment if anybody has one. I think you're on the agenda. Pat, you're actually on the agenda, so if you want to go ahead and wait. Okay.
Mary Lou and Ed Canizo. I'm just returning because I wanted to thank Council and Tim particularly for following through with the river raising problem I've got. I think it's going to be resolved. We're working on it. Tim's been working on it probably more than I, but we're working together on it. And it really is really nice to have that support. And I just wanted to thank everybody really, but Tim in particular. Thanks.
Thank you, Tim. Just so you know, Tim told me to be there Saturday, so. No, thank you. That community service is a priority. Any other public comment at this moment? Late visitor? Okay, moving on to unfinished business. I'll take this as part of the subcommittee. Eric, Mike, and myself were able to meet with LaSalle a couple times. And this is the motion we're presenting. We feel is the best motion. Leave it like that. Danielle, do we not have a proposed motion on this? On my notes.
I have all of my. It got changed.
Do you have that number, that last number?
Mhm.
Can you read it off for me?
Maybe I'm telling you yes, and then. Notes here, sorry, bear with me. You're just looking for that dollar amount, James?
That's all.
$259,360.37.
2593.
37 cents. Thanks for bearing with me there a second.
Thank you.
We have a breakdown right now.
I have it on my computer. I've got it. I have it scribbled written. You want me to rewrite it really quick so you can make sense of my notes all over the place?
So what the subcommittee is proposing is an offer of $259,360.30 to finalize or as a final payment to the request that LaSalle has made. And with the addition that this will absolve the village of any future litigation.
And the $259,000 number is based upon work that they.
Work that
Work that's
work
for the
that
benefit of the plant or.
work that the subcommittee feels is valid.
Was that 30 cents or 37 cents?
37.
Okay.
And that's all.
And
That's,
that's including this additional.
yes, yeah, that's probably in my notes, sorry.
Yeah, so much like James had alluded to doing. At the subcommittee level, we think representing the village in a good faith effort to come to a settlement agreement with LaSalle to continue completing the project and pay for the things that we feel the village received or added on to the project. The breakdown, concrete and additional materials, 137, 970, 984. Additional material costs, increase in material costs, 29,679.05. And then that recent sewer main replacement that wasn't part of the original project, 91,701.48. And that should be the total, 259,360.37. I'll make a motion that we offer LaSalle the $259,360.37 above and beyond the scope of the contract. As a good faith effort in terms of the improvements and additions that the village requested or incurred. Contingent on LaSalle's written waiver of an agreement not to pursue any additional claims known or unknown as of the effective date of the settlement.
I'll support. Moved and supported. Any questions or discussion?
So this money is gonna come out of the general fund?
This money cannot come out of the general fund. This money has to come out of
What's left? Oh, I'm sorry, right, out of the utility fund, yeah. But it's not coming out of our. Out of our.
Comment would be, thank you for you working diligently, as well as Danielle and staff on this issue, and I'll back you guys on the work that you have done and your recommendation.
Right, thank you. Anything, Jerry?
No, I'll just echo what Glenn said. I'm sure that was not an easy subcommittee. I appreciate all of your hard work.
All right, thank you. Lisa, if you want to call the roll.
Bill,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Jerry,
Yes.
Eric,
Yes.
Gwen,
Yes.
Tim,
Yes.
James,
Yes, the motion carries. Thank you. On to new business. First order payroll. Looking for a motion to approve the payroll register for 2023, April 2023. in the amount of $53,744.19.
Make a motion to approve the payroll register for April 2023 in the amount of $53,744.19.
Support. Moved and supported. Somebody have any questions?
Oh, never mind.
Go ahead. No?
No, you're good.
Okay, Lisa.
Gwen,
Yes.
Eric,
Yes.
Tim,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Bill,
Yes.
Gary,
Yes.
James.
Yes, thank you. That motion carries. Business item number 2, account payable. Looking for a motion to approve payables for the period of April 12th through May 9th in the amount of $394,565.37.
I'll move to approve the accounts payable for the period of April 12th, 2023 to May 9th, 2023 in the amount of $394,565.37.
Support. Moved and supported. Any questions on the bills? None tonight. Go ahead, Lisa.
Eric,
Yes.
Gary,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Tim,
Yes.
Bill,
Yes.
Gwen,
Yes.
James.
Yes, that motion carries. Business item number 3, request of a fee waiver.
So I do want to let you guys know, under this agenda item, the first paragraph is the specific request from the resident. The second paragraph is just some history from me about the account. I tried to do some calculations so that you guys would have the information, just looking at some of the things you guys have done in the past with waiving the sewer portion. This was a leaking spigot, yes, and that was found. So there are, I included a couple months, there are 5 months of high usage. And the residents just asking for any help to reduce their bill.
Well, we should act on precedent, Karen.
Did they notice their bill not going up steadily over the past 4 or 5 months, as indicated with the information you gave?
They did, is my understanding, and they had paid it, and then I think initially weren't sure where it was coming from once they found it, took care of it, but because I think the first time they were like, okay, I'll pay it, and then when it continued, that's when they needed their request. At least my understanding, I guess I should.
You went 12-month history.
I did do, because that's what I've done for the others, so I tried to be very consistent in the information I gave you guys.
So you're looking at 136.10, and then if we
No, yeah,
factored in the high rates, the additional 375.15.
right, so the 136.10 would be for the last month only, the 375.15 would be for the full 5-month period where the leak happened.
Well, I mean, it's a huge increase, obviously, when you're averaging 26.50 and then go to 9,000 and above.
He got worse.
Yeah. Based on precedent, I'll make a motion, we credit Gene Lombard 5/11/25 for the sewer portion of the 5 high rate months. For the sewer only, not for water bill.
Moved and supported. What was the number?
51125.
We're getting that number right, and it's.
It would be the 13610 would be for this recent month.
Yes,
And
The
then-
375 includes that, Mike.
Oh, it
I'm
does.
sorry.
Okay, I thought that's what you said, it's double, okay,
so it'll be the
so
375.
375.15. Okay, even better. Amend that motion.
I'll still second. Okay. Any other questions, comments, discussion? No, thanks, Mike. Lisa, you all. Mike, you're the water guy, by the way. Okay, forward.
Tim,
Yes.
Bill,
Yes.
Gwen,
Yes,
Eric,
Yes.
Jerry,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
James.
Yes. The motion carries. Action item number 4.
can we stop for just a brief?
Yes.
I'm not sure how, I don't know how we would do this, but I think that we as a council need to have discussion on these type of situations. I think that we started out, perhaps being appropriately generous, but I'm wondering if we're beginning to find ourselves going into a rabbit hole.
Yeah.
And I think we need to, have some discussion about that as of this date that will no longer happen, or this percentage or something like that. I'm not faulting anyone from our group here, nor am I faulting any of our residents. Because we have to follow the past precedents, but I think that we have, we need to revisit that thought process. And I don't know when a good time for that, not now, but when a good time for that would be.
Yeah, no, when's the next open committee of the whole?
So we actually have on the, it's on our agenda here, actually. An ordinance revision for the July 17th committee of the whole, specifically to focus on the utility ordinance and what we want to do to revamp that. And I had already put some notes, kind of some focus points. That we had talked about some payment plan options when things like this happen.
Yes.
And we had talked about giving staff like a small authority under certain situations.
Yes.
So we can talk about anything else at that time too, but it is scheduled in July.
So that'd be beautiful. All right,
Yes.
thank you. Thanks, Danielle. Thanks, James.
Yeah, no, thank you. I completely concur. Okay. Action item number 4. Pat Hine, costume assistance. Danielle, do you want to give us a brief recap from the village perspective?
Yeah, absolutely. So this request is coming to you guys, last year. I don't remember exactly the dates. We had a affidavit that was received from Mr. Hine. And at that time, I had noticed that it wasn't notarized. So my only question that I had raised with our attorneys at that time was if it had to be notarized, which then kind of in turn opened up this can of worms and led to a lot of other discussions and issues. And what was determined at that time was that the affidavit that was provided didn't meet the requirements of state statute. And it did in fact also need to be notarized. The copy of the lease should be provided. So I had then in October of last year reached out to Patty and Pat and let them know that they were not valid, they didn't meet the requirements. I worked with our attorneys to get a new affidavit drafted up that did meet those requirements. Shared it with the staff and Brandon accepts most all of those really. To make sure we knew what was expected, sent them a copy of that form and let them know to start working on it. And then a lot of these are before that. Some of them are, there's a couple that are after, but in my discussions with the attorney and Phil is on, is that it's the responsibility of the property owner or the landlord to be able or to provide the affidavit and the required documentation to not be liable for the utility bill. And we didn't have that information, therefore making Mr. Hine liable. So he's coming to you today and I'll let him really speak as far as that stuff with the request to get this taken care of. If you have questions for me, definitely let me know, or Phil, but otherwise I'll turn it over to you.
Mr. Village President, council members. I'm here to explain a problem that was started way back in, I'm not sure when, back when I was village president. We had these water bills where people weren't paying out of rental homes. So in essence, we asked Mr. Riley at the time to come up with a process to hold the landlord not liable for this. He came up with this affidavit. He had to do that after some extensive studying. So he did that. At that time, the intent was to keep the landlord safe if they had this affidavits filed. His answer was that we should have the affidavit and made out by the tenant and the landlord and filed with the village treasurer. In my case, all the tenants that I had filed such an affidavit. And that was up till November 22nd of 2022. That was the first that myself and Patty were made aware of this new change. My understanding of the form after that is that it could be notarized per the new village attorney. And that was really the only change in the form. Well, I'm being told the old form was not any good. And therefore the new notarized form had to be filed. And I did so with all new renters after that date. Therefore, the problem today is that, as many of you know, I'm trying to sell all these properties. When closing, the village has filed a lien on my properties for these water bills. And as any of you would say, you would be happy about that either, so neither am I. And so I ask you to, before all these properties actually sell, which most of them have, some of them have, water bills are brought up to charge to me, are not charged to me. Well, that is not right. That was the idea of the affidavit and the filing of this. I believe the new form started November 1st, but I'm not sure of that. I think you set a date there, but I'm not sure when it was.
Yeah, I believe my records show it was October of last year.
Okay. I personally was never made aware of that. Patty was, I believe. By the way, the new form does not have a date on it. So that's something you may want to have started, put dates on these things.
So Danielle, do you know, like, going down this list, how far past due these are?
Yes.
Speaking of dates,
I do. They vary. So the first one, it was 2018 to 2020. The 7922 was 2012 to 15.
Hang on, Danielle, 1 second. I apologize. I wanted to skip those dates down again. Could you say it again?
Yeah, first one, the 1239 was 18 to 20. 7922 was 12 to 15.
You're saying 2012 to 2015.
Yes.
Gotcha.
The 2628.63 was 2014 to 2022.
What month?
I don't have the months. I'd have to go back to pull that.
Do you know how many of these on this list are after the new affidavit was created?
Yes.
That's all I care about.
No, I'd like to hear more.
Okay, with the agreement with previous administration, what you're saying is that the previous affidavits were provided and were accepted and an agreement was made.
But I believe our administrator connected with them with the assistance with the attorney. And my understanding is, made them aware that all of these were not accurate and they needed to be corrected. Is that correct, Danielle?
Correct, so they don't meet the requirements of the MCL 123, 165, which I did put in the background brief.
Well, shame on the administration for doing that, for accepting those, but the problem is, how is he gonna go after a renter that rented from 2012 to 2014, get a new affidavit after that renter's?
I don't know. That's why I'm curious to see what some of these.
The 234 is 22 to 23. The 994 was 17 to 21. I'm sorry, here, 126.77 is 22 to 23. The 144 is 16 to 18. The 8410 is 14 to 2020. The 30871 is 2020 to 22. 28807 was 17 to 18. I missed the date on the 495 here.
That's okay.
The 556 was 18 to 20. I missed another date. 3583 was 15. 255.46 was 15 to 16. 395 was 16 to 17. 427.45 was 17 to 18. 677 was 18 to 20. 607.34 is 16 to 17. No date again. 119.28 was 14 to 17. 460 was 13 to 15. 797 is 15 to 16. 149.15 is 18 to 20. And then the 523 was 17 to 19. And then I did list next to them what we had for affidavits as well.
So all of these properties with these amounts did have an affidavit, regardless it's the, for lack of better words, the new version or the old version.
Okay, I don't know.
You don't know.
To be fair, so the first, I've listed on the side, so like the first one, the 1239.96, there's no affidavit on file. That was listed as Pat as the property owner. It was listed Frosty Boy / Pat Hind. So that wouldn't have necessarily prompted an affidavit because it's the same. And then like 221, the 7922, there's no affidavit found. I don't want to tell you that there wasn't one, but we went through all of the files. I went downstairs and went through the file cabinets. I can't find one. So I don't know. I'm just saying I can't find that file.
So
Brandon
that's something
can't
that
find it.
Pat, you would have, I know this is a long while ago, this one in particular, but just for example, do you guys?
Let me finish a couple things. I think I'll clear that up.
Okay.
During this period of time, most of these people have all moved out. Some of them have died, some filed bankruptcy, etc. Some of them have current accounts in the village of Blissfield and have never been assessed as local amounts. I can't tell you exactly who they are, but there are people that can do that. So therefore, I can't answer your question as you asked it, okay? We fill the form out on everyone that comes to us around. At that time, at one time, I had 35 rental properties in town. So it's kind of hard to keep that all straight. But most of them, as you notice, are all prior to this November 22nd deadline date. And then and how I found out about all this was terribly wrong. As I had these properties for sale, I had one for sale and they called here to find out if there was any liens. And they were informed, yes, there was. That was approximately December 29th or 30th of last year. So until then, I had no knowledge of any of these past due bills. And I should have not had, because I had the affidavits out of them all. Now, as anyone, after 5-7 years, you throw records away. And that's what we did. Those 3 file cabinets were just way too much to keep stored all the time. So that is the story as I have it. And when I look at this thing, I kind of look like, well, here is a law. There's a law out here that says you can't run a stop sign. But Dale is in here tonight and he saw someone run the stop sign. He can't stop them 2 weeks from now and that's write him a ticket for not running for stopping the stop sign. And that's basically what we're doing here. There's a deadline set and everything was done properly up to that point. And now I'm being penalized for doing it properly. Of no fault of my own, and I don't know who it was that made the decision with the affidavit. I would assume it was Mr. Riley. And unfortunately, the only 2 people here that were here at the time this happened was myself and Mr. Gunner. So, you know, you might ask him any questions too, you might have. But it was an enormous problem to the village, and I think at the time, I think our past due water bills were up to $100,000 or more. For everything, everybody. Go ahead with your question again, I'm sorry.
No, you answered that one particular question.
The intent back in the day was to protect the landlord, correct? And there's obviously other ways, probably new ways that we could do it, you know. Hold like a, you know, much like you say, okay, you're gonna charge $500 rent, you're gonna hold that account, you know, if they destroy the building or whatever, you don't get it back.
Right.
Do the same thing with a water, you know, at least some sort of.
We do now charge $240.
Okay.
I don't know if that's enough, but with the price of water today, it probably isn't.
I guess breaking it down at 325 West 8 and a Frosty Boy, that's your property, you should pay that. I don't know why that, you know.
It actually went to Mr. Castle, who I technically sold the business to, and then he redid
So that was
that.
during that time.
Yeah.
Post, October 2022, you know that you knew the rules, and if there was anything past that, I would say that if you didn't provide the proper paperwork, then that unfortunately, it doesn't meet the requirements.
Right.
There was an agreement made, good, bad, ugly. I think we should follow through. I did try to call Mr. Winnicott before we had our meeting tonight, just to try to clarify, and didn't get him to answer. My second tangent on this is, how are we allowing people that have past due balances to open new accounts? That to me, I mean, that's a challenge. But number 2, that's unacceptable. If you have a past due balance and you're just moving or creating whatever in that same name.
Is that
That's
correct?
that's unacceptable.
My understanding is that they are responsible for that. If they create a new account, Brandon.
It's our situation here. Okay, rental properties, if they open a new account, I can't transfer that law. I can't transfer the accounts from Pat Hunt's property to another property that's owned by somebody else, because I said I transferred $300 that's past due for past account to some account that you own, and that person doesn't pay. I'm sitting here with that $300 from past property a year back. I can only do it if they buy a property in town. So, for example, so if a house goes up for sale and they buy it, they show the paperwork in, I can transfer that balance over. I can't transfer it from one rental property to another.
So one rental to another rental cannot happen.
You're talking,
From a rental to a purchase, it can happen.
It can happen, and then a lot.
And this is a Michigan law, this is not an ordinance.
I wish I could, I wish the chef, you guys, he told me I cannot do that. in a lot of situations, these people get married, so they like thing changes. Or they have their husband who like, it's gonna be under the name, and I can't stop that. I can't.
Danielle, is the water account assigned to the property or the individual?
It's assigned to the individual through the property. So it's tied to the, like, if you pull up, let's say Danielle Gross, who lived at 120 Main Street, it would be tied to that, but then I purchase a house and I'm now at 550 Gibson. If I'm gonna have a new account number at 550 Gibson than what I had here. And in that scenario example I just gave you, we could move it, but where he's saying when we can't is the rental thing. But I guess, and I don't really have a dog in this fight, but I just want to make sure there's an understanding that so the state law was put into place in 1965. So that's been there, that's the rules, and that's why I referred to Pat that, like, I don't have the authority to violate the state law, and that's where this issue has kind of come up. And again, I don't know what happened in the past. I would definitely, obviously, that was far before my time. But I did want to make note too, I did list the affidavits that we do have, and those are missing a copy of the lease and the notary. And a copy of the lease is identified in the law. So that was my concern. So again, however you guys want to handle it moving forward, I think what Pat tonight's requesting is a waiver for those items that happened, I think all of them, but especially before. But again, the law was the same before as it was in October of 22. If I'm making sense.
It does, that's why this doesn't make quite sense.
So let me ask you, do we have a file of other landowners who have affidavits on files for their renters?
Yes, we do have other landlords in the village of Blissfield that file affidavits. Not all of our landlords do this. And they're not required to do it. It's completely up to the landlord. And it's completely their responsibility within the state statute to file the proper paperwork and get it submitted, to take that responsibility off of themselves for those utility bills. And again, we do have that form available revised, and it is online, and we have shared it with the other landlords as well.
So the revised one is the one that you're referring to for the October 22nd, correct?
And that's the revised form. Like, we are not
Revised
required to do that form, but because we had provided this one before, it was my understanding, and I wanted to try to help them out. So we did create that form with the attorneys to make sure that it hit all of those key requirements that are mandated by the state statute.
What's our past due process threshold now? Is it dollar or time?
So anything that it's time, with the exception of if they have a past due balance that's $25 or less, we don't turn them off. But otherwise, if they're past due two months, correct? Then the third month they get put on notice to pay, or they're turned off.
Okay.
Now they get a shut off postcard, you know, shut off email. And they have to pay, they pay my due date, if they don't pay, they get upset. Because every single day, we don't shut them off. It's every single day, we do.
I'm just looking at a couple of these properties, like 15, the 414 West Adrian. 3583 was in 15, 255 was 1516, 395 was 1617. So it's like compounding past dues.
So those are listed separately because they're 3 different renters.
3 different units.
No, because you got a permit fee.
Yeah, so
It's all one unit, it's 3 different renters.
What is Phil's take on?
So we can't track the difference between unit and individual.
No, I didn't want to list the individual's name on the,
Oh, no, I understand.
no, I have the individual names, I just didn't want to put that in the packet. So yes, I just listed the amount for each address, and I did it separately to identify it was a different renter.
Here's my problem with it is, as a residential homeowner, say 101 South Lane, whatever, I could rack up a $500, say a $300 late water bill and move and open a new account. Are you gonna put that lien on that property if I moved? Or it's, the state's talking out about them because they can go after, they're gonna leave the residential homeowner alone, try to go after the land, or go after the tenant, or the rental renter. Or the landlord, the landlord. How does that make one bit of sense? I mean, we probably write, how many late delinquent utility bills do we write off in a year on a residential property? Probably quite a few, right? But we're not nitpicking regular residential property owners, we're nitpicking the landlords.
So, the number has scaled down.
Because just recently, we wrote off quite a few very old delinquent accounts on a residential home, not a rentable home. So again, we're not being fair across the board, we're letting residential property owners go, but we're trying to go after the land.
Well, the landlords had the opportunity, if I'm understanding correctly, to complete an affidavit. They don't have to do the affidavit, that's a choice. That's what Jerry was just asking about, right, Jerry? Okay, so some do and some do not. This law has been in effect since 1960 something, 5. Okay, so in 1965, this was put in. Obviously, past that time, Mr. Riley went ahead and created this document, correct? Mr. Hind went ahead and used said document. All right, thinking it was accurate. However, it sounds like, and I don't want to offend you, and I hope I am not, it seems that all the I's were not dotted and the T's were not crossed because the affidavits were not filed. Because they're not being found. Is that accurate or is that inaccurate?
And I'm not
don't
saying,
know.
I want to be very clear, I'm not saying they're not filed, I'm saying I don't have a record.
All affidavits were filed on every piece of property I own, every time I had a renter change. It's part of the package they have to sign, maybe you can get the keys to get in.
And your comment will be then that because of the time frame, you're not going to be able necessarily to locate.
Oh, no, I
because
can't
of that.
locate them.
But at the same token, can we find affidavits for other landlords? Are we able to locate those?
So the affidavits, are they in the packet?
No, they're not. So
So.
we can find all affidavits from the time that Brandon has started. Before that time, we cannot.
So some of the affidavits without naming.
And that's what I did go through because Peggy does have a ton of files downstairs. I did go through those. I don't know where they're located, and that's, so again, I don't, they may exist and probably do, but where those are at. I do have copies of the affidavits since Brandon's been here. But that, and again, any other landlord, same thing, but not.
And does Phil have a recommendation or his thoughts on this? Because you're saying that stated that legal has looked at this as well.
Phil, are you still on Zoom that you can offer your opinion, or did you want me to share that?
No, I'm here. I'll be happy to. I wasn't there. Danielle wasn't there. Brandon wasn't there. Pat, frankly, wasn't there. But Michigan's legislature adopted a process that allowed landowners to transfer responsibility for water and sewer bills to their tenants if they submitted to the governing body of the jurisdiction that they were in both the affidavit and a copy of the lease specifying that the tenant was responsible for the utility payments. That process has been in place for years. It's never varied very much. Whether it was followed in the village of Blissfield or not, I can't say. I wasn't there, as I said before, and neither was Danielle. I can't imagine that Mr. Riley, being the careful practitioner that he was, nor Mr. Wanacott, being the conscientious administrator that he was, would have ignored the statutory requirements, which are very specific and very clear. Pat Hind is a friend of mine. I'm not going to deny that. He and I have always been on good terms, but with respect to this issue, Mr. Hind was responsible, and not the village. Mr. Hind was responsible for understanding the process, requiring him to submit both the affidavit and a copy of the lease, which should have provided that the tenant was responsible for the utility payments to the village, so that the village could bill the appropriate party and collect what was due from that person or persons. When those bills were not paid, the village is within its rights to certify those monies due to the property tax bill and collect the money via a lien upon the closing of a transfer of the property. So it's not like the property owner has to pay the money before they can sell the property. What it really means is that upon the sale of the property, at closing, the unit of government will be paid what's owed from the proceeds of the sale. There's no question about the fact that the process has been in place since 1965, and it's very specific. People have inquired about what's required. They have been properly informed about the requirement of not only the affidavit, but a copy of the lease. When those documents are provided, then they receive the benefit of the waivers that are being requested here. And when they're not, and I should go back and say, and when that happens, that gives the village the opportunity to collect those monies due from the people who are responsible. In this case, the tenants. When they're not, then the responsible party is the landowner, and we do what we do, and that's what's provided by statute. That is, we certify the past due bills to the tax roll, and we collect that from the proceeds of sale at closing. Does that help you all? I'm sympathetic to Mr. Hind as a property owner. I appreciate what what Mike has said about prior policy. I don't make policy. The law is what it is, as far as I'm concerned, and this is pretty much black and white. I don't know what else to tell you.
President, I guess I'm doing this for 40 years. This thing about the 65 law is the first time I've ever heard about it. So this council must not have ever been advised of that by our previous attorney. I believe, I mean, that would be the assumption I made, because we never did it before. It was only when the receivables on the water became so high.
Well, you're the one that initiated that entire process, correct?
No, it was our Weaver made the
Or
motion.
did, okay, so, but it was when you were sitting up here.
Yes, yes,
And you were making those decisions, so heaven forbid it benefited Pat Hine, but it did.
yes. So I didn't know it at the time.
My issue with it is, you know, we're a small town, we could have made a phone call and spoken to the previous administrator. And if he couldn't answer it, we don't have to make a second phone call, you hand the phone over to the previous clerk and maybe get an idea of what the former agreement was. And, you know, taking Pat's information or his request for what it's worth, or his statement for what it's worth, there was an agreement that was created that to enact these affidavits that would protect the landlords of the village from having this money or this issue come back to them. That was the whole idea behind the process. My issue with it is, are we going after the regular residential homeowners? Are we placing liens on individual properties that aren't rentable? Yeah, I mean, why wouldn't we be fair across the board? Why wouldn't state law dictate that we can do that on a regular residential property, Phil?
So we do put it to the tax roll, and we don't place liens, and we've not placed the lien on Pat's property. What we're saying is that this amount is due to the village. So what the title company is asking, because when these properties are sold, they'll pay that portion to the village. So with like a regular property owner, if their water bill is not paid for a certain time frame, then that portion gets put on their tax bill, and then they're required to pay that. Or same with a commercial business, that's not just the residential.
But then why did we write off other ones in the past, I guess is my question.
I'm not sure.
I mean, we just recently did that, right? This year, we just wrote off.
About writing off the past two balances.
Well, that we cannot write off the C balances. That we brought that up in the council meeting. I have, used to be one by one. And he said that you guys cannot write them off.
What did we just do a couple months ago with all of those bills when you were cleaning up
Yes,
the?
because we were
utility
dwindling down
bills.
that big number.
We just did it a couple months ago, and we had asked council, you were cleaning up all of the.
I think it's referring to the ones that, are not here.
No, what did we do a couple months ago?
Okay, so, we write off the small balances that we know that, for example, the person has passed away. So, and there's no next account that I can go after. So we write those off, and there's small balances. And then the other ones that we have not, she has been able to successfully finally forwarded addresses of people in the past, and I have sent those out. And I get some money, but I don't get all of it.
So that's kind of like, I think, our last ditch effort when we run out of contacts, or our first resource is typically to apply it to that tax bill. Because we're not waiting for it to sell, we're not waiting for them to move back into the community or elsewhere.
Do we have a receivables policy where we write off after a certain amount of time?
We don't write them off unless it comes to council, and it would be again after we've we've exhausted all other avenues. Like again, our first, we would apply it to, our ordinance specifically says that, and I don't remember the days, I apologize off the top of my head, but after so much time that it goes to the tax bill.
But we don't know that if that happened in the past,
If it went to the tax bill.
if we've written it off. We don't know, because that's
yeah,
part
I
of
don't
the bigger problem of what started all the checks and balances of the utility. The utility funds, correct? because things we were potentially being written off, or changes were being made, or credits were being given. We don't have that information. We have
Correct, I
asked.
do not. Yeah,
Okay, so it gets changed, it has to be 6 months past due, and whatever really process, it should probably changes. So December 31st, because taxes go out July 1st. So December 31st is the target date of the past due. And I do want to care about the reason why some of these properties are not, have not been assessed, is because of the affidavit, which because I'm not, that's actually great for that down. So I will be putting them on the census this year. For anybody that does not have a valid affidavit,
So you're saying these were thought to have a valid affidavit?
say again.
You thought these were thought to have a valid affidavit until October of 22 or November of 22? So you were operating under the assumption these had valid affidavits?
But a lot of these, affidavits that, go away. Was just dropped off at the office or put it in the box, I mean, they're not even notarized.
Yeah, but that's a different. Okay,
Much like Pat assumed that there were valid affidavits, right, prior to October of 2022.
yeah. I struggle at seeing the pattern of one property have multiple past due and it was not addressed. And Pat's an easy to find guy, so, you know, from 2015 through current, there's a number of properties here that have multiple charges. And if they didn't have an affidavit on file, I would think that the treasurer would be addressing that.
But
And
that's
hence it wasn't addressed because they was thought to have a valid affidavit on file. That's sort of my cyclical thinking here. Until it was discovered they did.
I'm gonna say something, it's not, I don't believe it's my job to babysit these people and make sure that they have a valid affidavit. They should do their own due diligence. Not me.
And isn't that what the state statute carved out?
yeah, it does say that the responsibility is that of the landlord.
And that's what Bill is referring to as well.
Yes.
It's not my.
I mean, at that point, rental property ownership is a business,
Is what?
right? It's a business.
Yes, it's a big business.
And if I'm understanding, and maybe I'm putting it into the wrong terms, Phil, help me out here if I'm understanding correctly. Let's just use this property here that's on the 325 West Adrian for that 1239.96. There's no lien on this property right now, as you stated, Danielle. But when it comes time for that sale, this amount of money would come to the village for the payment. So essentially, selling that property, you could increase it of the 1239.96. The property owner could, and that money could still come to the village and be paid. Because it is a business, as Jerry, you just pointed out with the landlord position. Does that make sense? Is that right, Phil?
Is that a question to me?
Yeah.
Well,
I'm sorry, I don't know, I'm trying to summarize what I'm understanding is there's an amount of money that's out there. It is not a lien on the property, but the property owner, in this case, Pat, could go ahead, sell that property. When the property is sold, that amount comes to the village. The property owner could go ahead and make sure that that property was raised that amount of money, increase that amount of money for sale, and we would get that money because it's still the property owner's responsibility.
There's a lot of intangibles in your question.
Yeah, I know
Gwen,
there is.
but I'll try to answer it. The simple answer to your question is yes. The seller could increase the asking price by the amount of the lien, and then use that amount of money to satisfy the lien, and the buyer would essentially pay the water bill.
You said what I was trying to say.
The other scenario is that the seller could ask $250,000 for the property, knowing that there's a lien of $15,000, and aware of the fact that at closing, the lien would be satisfied and he would receive $235,000 for the property. All of those things, all of those are reasonable scenarios in the sale of a rental property, a commercial property. I guess I've answered your question, or I think I have.
Yeah, you have done it much more succinctly than I, but that's what I was trying to say. Thank you.
Pat, are there any past due accounts related to current residents?
No, not that I know
So these are all vacant properties right now?
of. No, that vacant, they're just got different tenants on them.
Okay. So the tenants that are in there are not behind on their water bill?
Are now,
Correct, right?
are not,
They're not.
they're not. That I
I'm
know.
asking, are they or are
I
they?
don't know that. I didn't, this doesn't include the current bills.
Do you have affidavits and leases on file for all of your current tenants?
Yes,
So let me summarize this in a different way. These individuals enjoyed and benefited from this, and we're penalizing Pat, when we really should be going after these individuals. We're penalizing Pat because of past practices. We want to apply current practices to past practices. We can't do that.
Yeah.
Is that's a simple summary. Right? I mean, I can't wrap my head around penalizing the landlord because of past practices, and I can't apply current practices to the past. So we know who owes these bills. We know the individuals who have outstanding invoices with us. Those are the individuals that we need to seek reparations from.
So we can't legally because we don't have valid affidavits. So your options as council at this time are to leave these bills to the property owner or to write them off, waive them, get rid of them. We don't have the legal authority to go after these people. The only time we have the legal, and that's why it's coming to you guys. Like, and again, I feel for Pat being in this position, but we can't break the law, and I'm not going to, so that's where either you write them off or they're Pat's responsibility.
I have a question. I mean, in this background brief that I'm reading, it says, at this time, Mr. Hine owns various properties with affidavits that are not valid and past due balances owed. He is requesting council waive or work with him on the fees. Those are your words. What do you mean by work with you on these fees?
I didn't put those words in there, but it's really waived because, I mean, I was never aware until I got this piece of paper here tonight that there was this kind of bills owed by some of these people. I had a summary sheet that was given to my real estate lady from the title company that gave just the amounts and the addresses, but didn't have it broke out by individuals. And I just got that, I think, December 30th or 29th. So until then, I did not have any knowledge that there was any money owed on water bills from any of these people. And by that time, they'd all gone. I mean, one guy was hauled out in an ambulance and committed, and another guy died, and any story you want to hear, I can tell you.
All right, well, this has been discussed. Is there a motion? Does anybody want to present a motion?
Yeah, well, again, unfortunately, we don't know. Shame on whoever, we don't have the documented proof, we don't have the agreement, we probably could have made a phone call and found that out. And not sat here for a half hour thinking about it. But anything after October 2022, you obviously knew the rule, Phil figured it out and passed it along to Danielle and Brandon, which was passed on to you. Anything beyond October 2022 should fall back on you there, Mr. Hind. But again, we didn't always see eye to eye and everything, but I feel for you, and I think I hope you're being honest, and I hope you're bringing your understanding to us, and I'll take that for what it's worth. Anything prior to that, we write off other residential properties. I don't see why we can't work with Mr. Hind on that one. Unfortunately, we just don't have the definitive knowledge to make an informed decision.
Do we have any knowledge of any of these after October 22?
Every form has been filed properly since then. Is that correct, Brandon? All the properties since October 22 of 22 have affidavits, everything filed, leases and everything.
There is, I believe, 206 East Adrian Upper, 234-34. That resident left after you were notified. They left the beginning of 23.
No, they left long before that. I had to have them evicted. If I have to, I can get the eviction notification on that. There hasn't been anybody in 206 East Adrian in 4 months. At least, maybe 5.
The utility bill was on until that time frame. And then I'm not sure about 206 East Adrian, the 12677. Do you know about that? Because that went into 23 as well.
12677.
It's 206 East Adrian. It's the
That's not really material.
fourth page, Brandon.
That's in there.
Those are the two that I have circled, the 234-34 and 126-77.
I agree to that. I mean, if it's after that 22nd date, when we were notified of this change, then I should have to pay that.
I think that takes you down to 1205,724.
Maybe she should it's one of the building and bring it down immediately, but it's not good risk. And it's a good one.
Okay, was it before October of 22?
Well, I insurance that it is made British at 20 Street. That's the agency.
So are they still a renter? Pat?
Who's that?
Garrison.
Not that I know
That's the.
What address?
So that would have been
106.
done before, but the lease was for a year into 23, which was after. So those were the two I had that they were put on notice after the time, out of the October 22. Because we did tell, like we said, we would take whoever they had currently if they got that in. And then the 325 West Adrian Street, the utility bill was never changed in that one. So it was Patrick Hines / Frosty Boy. And you said you had somebody there?
Yeah,
Did they just not put the bill in their name?
right, that's correct, yes. I want to refer him to Dale. But Dale wouldn't have to go to Alabama and catch him. That's a problem.
That was the land contract.
Yeah.
agreement They made on that Frosty Boy property.
Mhm.
That's all good. I mean. I hope, again, this is dirty water, that shouldn't be out of this type of meeting, but I hope that we're following up with other landlords that may have are providing affidavits to the village or any other landlord regardless, when somebody comes in to open a water bill in a rental property.
I was
We
thinking,
have
That
them.
we're,
Yes.
okay.
Yes.
We're doing checks and balances on.
Yes,
others.
we've provided copies of that.
Post
The
2020, post October 2022.
Correct, we have the new affidavit, we've talked, even the ones that haven't historically provided them, we make sure that they know, so yes. Moving forward, we'll continue to do that.
And it's based on the website.
It is on the website, yes, thank you, Brandon.
Okay, Mike, you were making a motion.
Was that a complete motion?
Yeah, I mean, if those are the only two, unfortunately, there was a couple that we didn't have the dates for. But. You know, the two that we know were post 2022, I would say that unfortunately, that's,
So okay.
you knew that.
I can live with that.
Would you restate your motion?
I guess, any of the
You want a number?
above addresses on this list, yeah, so or post October 2022.
12,057.24.
No, he would owe the,
Yeah,
which is the 234 and the 126.
You're writing off the 1257.
yeah. I'm going there.
Okay, sorry, yes, credit or whatever, well. It's not a credit because it doesn't go in, it would be a lien placed on his property later on.
Yeah.
But I'm saying, my motion is, Mr. Hine, you owe the village for the past due residences of 206 East Adrian Street Upper, $234.34. And 206 East Adrian Street. I guess lower, whatever, 126.77.
What was that number?
126.77.
No problem.
So what's,
And you obviously know the rule for placing affidavits and having them notarized.
Absolutely, yes, sir.
And if we want to put the date on the new form. Thank you.
The old form didn't have a date either.
That's my long motion.
Just so everybody's on the same page. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
We're gonna have to notify the treasurer's office, I assume, that this is the decision of the village council and that whatever liens apply to these properties should be forgiven. So we'll need to take care of that.
We didn't file a lien.
Yep, they're not liens, they're just when they call in here, the real estate people, Brandon or Danielle, tell them what's sold.
Just a CYA. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Mike, if I may, my only question would be, because we have no legal authority to go after these people, would your motion also include to waive the 12,057.24? Or to write off, or however you want to word
I
that?
mean, yeah, I guess if there's no way to go, and that's my frustration, is we know that there's people that continuously buck the system. And yet, you know, we're up here seen as, you know, the prayers or whatever, you know, not working with people and not giving people time to pay their stupid bill. That's what grinds my butt.
Well,
Title change, and people think that they're entitled to everything, so. If we know that somebody's bucking the system, we need to somehow come up with a way to address it. All it does is fall back on the rest of us taxpayers. That's correct.
And,
well, we made good adjustments to the process. I think we're getting it under control, but it's not fully under control yet. All right, I have a motion. Do I have support for it?
Could you reread that motion, please, for clarification?
Danielle's probably gonna have to do that because I don't think mine's complete.
Okay.
I'm assuming she
I
is.
did, so, and please correct me if this is wrong, Mike. Move that Pat Hyde owe the village for 206 East Adrian Street Upper in the amount of $234.34 and 206 East Adrian Street in the amount of $126.77, and that the village write off $12,057.24 for the remaining accounts in which the village has no legal authority to collect.
Thank you.
Is that okay, Mike? Okay, and I'm sorry, who seconded that?
No, I just asked for support.
Oh, okay, sorry.
I'll support it. Thank you, Tim. Okay, motion moved and supported. Barring any other discussion? Lisa?
Well,
Oh, go
I
ahead.
got, you know, it's sort of relevant, but you know, maybe a deposit's the safer way for these landlords to go about it. Whether like they're, you know, protecting their own personal property, maybe they protect themselves. I know what makes it a challenge to for a renter to come up with, you know, your deposit on your apartment plus a deposit on utility bills, but again, we're trying to protect the landlord as well.
Yeah. No, that's a good suggestion. And you know, I think we're actually getting lucky here finding out about this. The real estate agent, if they hadn't placed a call, the sale would have gone through, nobody would have been notified. So then we're just sitting on an endless outstanding receivable here. All right, Lisa.
I have one question. I just want to make sure I'm clear. This amount that that would be written off, would we be able to collect that through the sale of the property? So this would be a complete write-off of the whole, of that amount.
One other question I have, do we have any current residents on this list that are behind? Any renters that are behind their water bill renting from that? No, right now. These are all old bills, okay, Danielle read off before. All your people are up to date. As far as I know, I mean, I'm not privy to a lot of that information. Brandon, you would have record if anybody's behind.
I can tell you, he does have a current renter that is past due, but with the current policy. A couple of things. One, he has affidavits with new form and has provided leases, which will protect Pat. Two, under the current policy and the ordinances, if they're past due, they'll get shut off until they pay that. So they're gonna be prompted to pay before it gets too out of control, because otherwise they'll have no water.
What if they break the lease and move out and don't pay it? What happens?
So with his current tenants, he has proper affidavits with copies of the lease. They're notarized.
With the exception of 3.
With the exception of 3. So as long as he gets those in and they're signed and fully filed, then he'd be protected. If Pat doesn't, then he'll be responsible for that bill.
Do we have a deadline for them to be in?
That's up to Pat.
Who are the 3 people? Or what are the addresses? No, just come into the office. Just the addresses is fine.
I'm not sure how this addresses the motion.
It doesn't. Yeah, just to the side.
I'll come and get them from you. This week.
I'm ready, Lisa, go ahead.
Bill?
Yes. I'm here.
Yes.
Garrett?
No,
When?
Based upon the statements and the scenarios from our attorney that were stated, I am saying no.
Jared?
Yes.
Tim?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
James?
Yes. So that motion carries 5-2. All right.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your time. Sorry to have to bother you on such issues.
Good luck.
One other thing I'd like to mention. Back when we got tied in with DNP cable, the council at that time requested these televisions, but they were supposed to be placed to the point where people at home that had DNP cable could tie into this and watch this meeting at home. So you might want to check with DNP the next time, whoever is responsible for them, and find out why that has never happened.
I think we're broadcasting, are we not? Yeah, we're live through YouTube. Yeah.
Okay, well, it's supposed to be right through DNP on their private channel.
I don't think it was, we signed a new 10-year franchise agreement. I'm not sure it was included in it.
Oh, okay, all right, thank you.
Yeah, public education channels are.
Yeah.
Being few, for between 7.
All right, resolution adopting the personnel policy, action item number 5. Looking for a motion to approve the village personnel policy that we worked through during our committee of the whole and brought up.
I'll move to approve the resolution adopting the Village of Blissfield personnel policy.
support.
Who wants to support that? Eric? All right, any discussion or
I know Tim probably had a problem with it, and myself, on page 21, I don't like the way that reads regarding what is a spouse. I would rather just say spouse or partner. I think that was the intent of the Bill to Protect. That law already dictates what a spouse or a partner is. And in order for the quote progressive explanation of what entails a spouse, I would much rather just.
You're on page
21.
page 20.
That's,
Page 76 in the packet.
Thank you.
And
the law
Bill,
already dictates what a spouse is. I mean, we don't have to double up and rehash what a spouse is disseminated as. I would say spouse or partner, that kind of goes back to protecting when, you know, when you brought up your interest, or, you know, again, a lot more people don't get married, but they live with somebody, they have a partner. Again, it's not our business, whatever you consider a partner, consider a spouse, consider it whatever. But again, the way that it has to spell it out in the progressive terms that it does, to me, just doesn't, it's more of a in your face sort of mentality for me, which I don't agree with.
That is my feeling too. If we don't change it, I'm voting against this policy. Spouse is sufficient.
I believe we had this dialogue a while ago, we had a lot of dialogue, and not just on this one issue. My comment is this, is that we are spending a significant amount of time on this dialogue for this issue, for this policy, and we're continuing to have the same dialogue. I'm not quite sure why, when my understanding, my impression was this was going to be a no dialogue because we've already had all that. That's my only comment.
Well, it wasn't just that, it was the questions of what constitutes extended family, and
Yes, but we had it in the committee the whole
correct,
meeting.
and I continue to look through it, and nobody's really consistent. The state of Michigan, Society for Human Resource Management, June 2023, considers it whatever for FMLA. The Michigan Department of Health and Human Services has a different definition of immediate family members. So again, I think we were trying to clean up what we could just create ourselves. And it doesn't have to be something specific that the state creates or that the feds create. We can create the policy and how we want to read it. And we can say, what is a spouse, what is a partner, and move on.
But that was part of the family, that was part of the family. That's the paperwork to say that, we had that dialogue.
It doesn't, but FMLA doesn't have to take precedent. It doesn't have to, again, like I said, you know, FMLA considered under the state of Michigan is a legal spouse, a parent, biological, adopted, foster step. We constitute in-laws, we constitute, you know, half brothers, half sisters, that sort of thing. So again,
So you're stating that because
it doesn't have to equal what FMLA constitutes, because everybody has a different definition of what is a spouse or a partner or a immediate family member. If FMLA is covered under the FMLA part, fine, the feds created that, it is what it is. Our policy regarding what is a spouse or a partner under our bereavement or under our time off policy is created by
ours being
ourselves.
the village was
Correct.
understand.
Any other discussion? Lisa, if you will.
Jared,
Yes.
Bill,
Yes.
Mike,
No,
Tim,
No.
Gwen,
Yes.
Eric,
Yes,
James,
Yes. The personnel policy is approved. Moving on to action item number 6, approve the wastewater treatment upgrade payment.
this is for work completed. It has been reviewed by the engineers and staff. If you have specific questions, let me know, but we are good with this.
Make motion to approve contractors pay up 25 in amount of 87,337.71. Connection with the Village of Blissfield wastewater treatment plant project upgrade, and authorize the village administrator to execute all documents related to the payment.
Support. Moved and supported. We still at 85%? 95%. 95%, sorry.
We're 97.
All right, do we have any contingency left?
Not with the motion that was made earlier.
No, gotcha.
For this, yes, though, right? Because this was part of the original contract.
This,
Yes,
yes,
yeah.
this is all part of,
Yep.
yeah, we have funding left. This
Yeah.
is all part of the, we
So I
don't, just
wondered.
don't have any contingency fund.
Correct. Gotcha. Any other questions? Lisa?
Gwen,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Eric,
Yes,
Jerry,
Yes.
Bill,
Yes.
Tim,
Yes.
James,
Yes. Thank you. The motion carries. Last action item, approve the beverage tent for the River Raisin Festival.
So I do, this is the same request that you guys have gotten in the past. I do want to apologize, I guess, and just make a very clear that I probably didn't word this very well in the agenda, where it says that the village would incur the cost of law enforcement associated with activities, including the beverage tent. They do actually have their own, security at the beverage tent, so pending like some major issue, our police department would not have to work that. Our police department does do regular shifts and work the actual festival itself, but I did just want to publicly apologize for kind of being not very clear there. And then Rick, actually from the, are you the chair? Is that your president of the River Raisin Festival Committee is here as well, if you guys have any specific questions for him. I can tell you guys too, they will be requesting a camping and the fireworks approval, but I wanted to get this in front of you guys because of how far behind the Liquor Control Commission has been in getting the applications processed to make sure they could get it in as soon as possible. But if you have questions for either of us, let me know.
I do. Is there a club or organization that is operating or running this,
We're partnering with Band Vets.
Adrian?
Yeah, we've done that, for years, you know, and, Aaron Ricketts has, been helping us in the past. He's passing it on to another person in Band Vets, but he's still helping out this year as well.
How many years has this festival?
This, I think, 38, 39, it's up there. Yeah, I've lost track. It seems like 50, I don't know. I've only been on that very young banner, so.
So really well loved summer festival. I'm looking for a motion to approve the beer tent. Is that what we call it? Beer tent?
Is it that entire
Paragraph?
paragraph?
If you want it to be that, you can say like as stated,
Yeah.
or if you want to change it, I can also change it.
I'll make a motion to approve the request of the River Raisin Festival Committee for a permit, to set up the beverage tent in Claire Bachmeyer Park from Friday, July 14th, 2023 through Saturday, July 15th, 2023 to operate until 12 a.m. each night with last call at 11:30 p.m. with the following conditions as stated.
Support. Thank you. Glenn. Mike, was that you? I have support. Any other discussion, questions for either Danielle or Rick?
Just assuming things are not, we'll probably be seeing the fireworks.
Yes, camping and fireworks, they'll get that to me and I'll have that probably the next agenda, I
I
think.
got camping for you here.
Okay, yeah, like I said, I just wanted to get this one because of the delay and.
Is that Boy Scout camping or is that
The carnival camping.
Carnival camping, yeah.
Okay, great. Lisa, if you will.
Bill,
Yes.
Tim,
No.
Jerry,
Yes.
Eric,
Yes,
Mike,
Yes.
Gwen,
Yes.
James,
Yes. Motion carries. Thank you, Rick.
Yeah.
Moving on to reports. Does anybody have any questions about the reports? I'd just like to say thank you to Chief and the treasurer and administrator for the reports, ED as well when those come in. All right, council discussion.
I would just want to say, going back to the personnel manual, I think this is a good change. I mean, it's definitely something that we need to do for a long time. It makes things much clearer for our employees, protect our employees. And, you know, just there's one or two things that we're not always going to agree on. I wholeheartedly believe separation church, state, whatnot. My reason for voting no, I don't like things stuffed in my face or shoved in my face when
No.
things are really answered.
Are we in shock, everybody?
But that being said, this is a very good policy, and Danielle,
Yes.
thanks for coming up with that.
I would concur with that, Mike. as
Yeah,
well.
not everything has a financial impact, but it definitely has an impact on the village.
It's been a long time
Employees.
coming.
Yeah.
That has been something, Mike, for a long while, that it has been in there. I have a couple of things, if that's okay, Mike, did you have something on board, Mike, to address? I just was curious, a couple of things, regarding the grandstand down there, Danielle. That looks absolutely awesome. The cleanup, the work that the guys have done, it just makes the whole space look more alive. So tell them, in my opinion, a job well done down there. Get another accomplishment for the village, something that we want to get done, and it's tangible. We can see that being completed.
Is the fence up?
They're still working on it.
Yeah.
They've got to do the roof over the electrical and, but it,
Roof was on.
oh, did they get it today? Okay. See, I haven't even been out.
But
But they do have some finishing things to do, and they did get it seated. It does look really good.
it's cleaned it up very nicely. Another comment was regarding the trees or the shrubs at the park. Danielle, you and I touched base about that. I know that there's some, I want to say there's the arborvitae, but I'm not sure the type of tree. With the ice storm bent over the park, and they are the root there. I mean, they're actually the rootage is there. What's the status on those trees?
So DPW is aware of them.
Right.
They did put some cones to try to keep kids trying to play on them. Honestly, DPW is slammed, and I know it seems like that ice storm was a long time ago, but it was kind of the perfect storm. So we had the ice storm with all the down branches. Couldn't get to our normal brush location because of the upgrades going on at the wastewater treatment plant. So we tried to pick up the big pieces, had to put them at DPW. We took them out to a private property, put them at Ellis Park, and then had to eventually move from the park and things. And then with mowing and weed eating and everything else and our regular brush pickup. So it is on their radar to do. It's just a matter of timing and
What will
getting.
they do with? I mean, because some of them, literally, the roots are out. They're gonna have to take the shrub right out of there, and then we'll have to talk
So
about.
we
replacement
won't
for that.
clear private property.
So this is not.
So anything that's on our property, we'll have to cut up and haul off.
Okay,
Is what we'll do with it. But again, it's just simply 6 guys doing a ton of
I
stuff.
remember this would have been a couple years ago where
Where are these at?
these are by the playground, but
Claire Bachmeyer.
yeah,
Okay,
and
I know where
you
you're
know where I'm
talking
going with this? Okay, so there was some of the residents that are there with those arborvitae, with those shrub trees there that they do block from the park. There's also sometimes people have chosen that to be a bathroom. And so
If that's our proper, if that's our fence, put up the black
I'm wondering if that may be something that
privacy screen fence or.
Yeah, that's not our fence with that, but absolutely we can have a discussion regarding privacy and.
yes, that I know because if those shrubs are taken away, then there will not be the privacy for those particular residents. Just something that I didn't know if we'd had dialogue, or maybe Brett had recalled that, something like that at all. Okay,
Yeah,
not a big deal.
it is on our radar though,
Okay.
and we do appreciate everyone's patience with that. Like I said, just DPW, I mean, they do so much.
Oh, yeah.
They helped open the pool, and get that going this week. They do the street sweeping. They're already talking to the contractors to get those projects marked and scheduled on top of like all their just normal day-to-day and getting everything open for the summer. So they will get to it though.
Another item for council from, again, is not looking for an answer right now, but we had talked, 2 meetings ago regarding the library board. And again, there was some information, Danielle, about a library board meeting coming up. I didn't know if anybody besides you might be able to attend those meetings. Again, if we could have maybe some dialogue about that. I know we all have lots to do, but I'm curious if maybe we could have some presence at the library board meetings, maybe get our thoughts out and get their thoughts here. I don't know. And then my last comment would be the passage of the bond, the school bond. But that was something that I was, from a personal note, happy to hear about.
Yeah, that was exciting. Bill, anything from you? Tim?
I'm just gonna share, we did contact the River Raisin Watershed to make sure we're gonna clear up this log jam this Saturday behind Kanizel's house, so.
Did you get a hold of Maya?
We did it via email. And she sent it to us. It's called a clean and open method, telling us what to do. So we're gonna build a raft to go out on there. I've got a team assembled and we're gonna get it cleared out, so. Be this Saturday morning. Thank you.
Thanks for working with us.
I'm glad you made a connection.
Eric, anything from you?
I do not have it.
Jerry? I'm good. I have one for Chief. Officer Luce did a presentation at After Prom this Saturday night, and the kids thought it was super cool. He did a self-defense thing for all the juniors and seniors that attended After Prom. That was really well received, and I think he's just getting a lot of creating a lot of goodwill on the school campus. So I'm really thankful to have him out there. And then just again, to reiterate DPW, I ran into Eric Purser at the ball field and he looked exhausted, and usually he's pretty chipper and he wasn't, so I know he's going to do it. So if you see DPW, you know, send them donuts, send them water, send them beer, whatever.
And Danielle's update, they've got their weeks coming up, don't they? So
Yeah, I was actually gonna throw a little plug in. So next week is National Police Week. So if you guys want to bring some donuts or some to our officers, they'll tell you they don't want any appreciation, but we do appreciate them. And then the following week is National Public Works Week, so we'll be celebrating public works. So if you want to, they also like donuts for anybody out there listening. So if you want to drop them off some treats as well, or it really, I know I'm kind of joking about that, but just maybe tell them thank you for all they do. Because both police, I mean, all of our employees are just awesome.
So we have our second public comment period. I'd open it up to anybody from the public. Seeing none, committee of the whole agenda preview. Does anybody have anything to add to this?
It may not have to be this coming, but I'm hearing more and more from public. And again, this is something we kind of tried to walk the line on ordinance. Staying in current with ordinances, staying current with blight. And again, I think we need to get a little bit more feedback from building inspector, from, you know, planning and zoning, from the police. I think that there's a lot more people that are frustrated with the lack of enforcement than we're a little bit privy to or aware of. And again, it's walking that fine line because, you know, some people can't afford to do things, but again, you know, there's that house across from the fire hall that got smoked by the car, whatever. We haven't seen that anything was out there. You know, we waited how long on that house that burned. You know, there's previous things.
Yeah.
And I hear more dialogue of some buildings in the downtown area that neighboring residents are having issues with neighboring buildings. So unfortunately, it may be the time that we have to unfortunately be a little bit more assertive, a little more aggressive in reinforcing those ordinances on file. And obviously we're looking at rehashing them or rewriting them.
Kind of in your face.
Yeah, oh yeah. What, me? Am I violating?
We do have this coming up in July.
Yeah, the same.
And we'll probably need to wait till then, right?
But I actually have the ordinance Title I revision done. I've sat down with Chief and Stacy and our attorneys. The attorneys are giving it a once over to make sure we're not missing anything, because it is quite a bit of changes, and then I've started working it. It kind of ties to other things and started working on it, so some of that may come sooner. And then two, maybe we need to, this might be good feedback, because we can do a better job at reporting some of this information. Mike specifically brought up some properties we are working with them on. So maybe we just need to do a better job at communicating that, so you guys know it is on our radar. We've talked to those people and things like that.
That would be helpful.
Yeah, I mean, I feel for people, but when it's causing a inconvenience or it's damaging other people's property, then I'm starting to hear that, and that's where we need to do a little more.
I'm not the only one.
Anything else for agenda? Meeting on the whole agenda.
Change.
Who'd like to do the honors?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Tim and Bill. Lisa.
Aaron,
See ya, bitch.
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Gwen,
Yes.
Bill,
Yes.
Jane, or Jerry.
No.
I will.
Yes.
I do this. Tim.
Yes.